Hello everybody, this is Mike at Gamefromscratch, and welcome to a new video. Today we are taking a look at the Godot Engine. Specifically, just yesterday, release 2 of the Godot Engine came out, and we're going to look at exactly what that release brings to the table. Now, if you've never heard of it, Godot is an open source, cross-platform, editor-based, written in C++, but scripted in GDScript, which is a Python-like dialogue programming game engine. It's a very, very impressive engine. I've done a very in-depth suite of tutorials on Gamefromscratch, including a very in-depth look at the engine in my Closer Look At series, and I will link both of those down below. Now, along with the release of the Godot Engine 2, there's been a number of other changes. So first off, obviously, we have Godot Engine 2 released, and I'll link this as well, the article that goes, it's got the release notes, what was new, what was added, but we'll be looking at a lot of that in a lot more detail today. But they also did a major revamp of their site and their community in general. So this is the new Godot web page, and if you've been here before, this is a lot prettier. Now, a couple things have changed. One thing I've noticed, for better or worse, I can't find the forums anymore. Now, I don't know if the forums have been retired or not, but if you come in here to community, you will now see there's a few new options. One of them is not forums, so I don't know, again, if they've retired the forum. They may have. They may be encouraging people to use the Reddit community instead. But what is brand new is there's now an IRC forum, or an IRC chat room, and there is a question and answer style in the form of Stack Overflow for asking and answering questions like so. So I guess if you combine an IRC chat and Stack Overflow and Reddit all combined, having a forum is a bit redundant, but the wealth of information that was stored there was valuable, so I really hope they didn't get rid of it and they just forgot to link to it. So even if it's just available somewhere read-only, please bring that back so we have access to it. So anyways, this is the new design community. It's definitely a nice development there. Now, in a minor note, Godot has also just officially been released to Steam. Now, it's completely free on Steam, so this is mostly just a community exposure thing. If you are a Godot user, you might want to go in there, give them some more positive reviews. It's definitely a great little engine. I'll be doing so myself the next time I log into Steam. It's just another way of getting it. This probably allows them to release .1 or .0 kind of updates to it that can be pushed out. The majority of us will probably continue to directly download it from their website or build it from scratch from GitHub. But bundling it on Steam, like I said, does make it available as an option to a number more potential developers. So hopefully it does raise the exposure of the engine a little bit. So it's nice to see that it's up on Steam, and that just went up today. So that's pretty cool news. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if you do need it, I have a tutorial series, a pretty extensive one, both video and text form. You will find that even though Godot 2 has changed things around quite a bit, it is still pretty much 95% of the tutorials I've already done are still applicable. Things have moved a little bit, but all your coding stays the same. Everything else that way stays the same. As I said also, there is an in-depth review of the existing engine. Now, one thing that's a challenge is I could not get, and I wanted to do a side-by-side version of Godot version 1.x and 2. And oddly enough, I can't find 1.x anymore, and I didn't take the time to build it from scratch. So there's no longer binaries available. If you go to the download page on the GodotEngine.org website, you'll only find Godot 2.0 stable as an option. I'd also like to see them add links to the older versions for those of us that can't immediately upgrade, or for people in my particular situation that want to contrast the two in a video. So today you're only going to see what's new. So if you have no previous experience, just know that for the most part, everything we're about to see here is really an improvement. Now, this is your typical Godot project launcher. Not much has changed here, but let me just fire up one of the built-in examples, and I'll be using this to demonstrate what has changed. Give that a second while it loads. Being a bit slow, make sure nothing stupid is happening on my computer. I think I fired off a couple too many copies of Godot. Yeah, let's kill that guy, see what we get. Oh, no, that was a double window. All right, that's just me being full-on stupid. Let's start over. Fire up Godot. Fire up our tutorial. All right. Here we go. So, typical 2D view. This is an isometric example from the Godot package. So if you've never seen Godot before, this really isn't the video for you for the most part. You still may enjoy it. I hope you do. But this is mostly about showcasing new features of the Godot engine in the 2.0 release. So if you want more in-depth, go back and see the video version I did here in the Closer Look series. I'll link this down below. So this is not an introduction to Godot, just about what has changed. And here you go. Immediately you see it looks quite familiar, but some things have changed for the better for sure. One thing you'll see right here is we've got an updating now that has, as things are updated or changed, it's redrawn. Now I can actually toggle that off, so we're not going to get that real-time updating type thing. So we can update always or update on changes. Like so, and that should make it much friendlier when operating on a laptop. I ran it for a couple hours today on my laptop and it didn't kill it immediately, which is one of the problems with running, say, Unreal Engine. It runs as fast as possible and it's just a battery drain. This one's pretty solid that way. So anyways, one of the major things that they've changed in terms of the way the layout works is you can now redock these things. So it used to be that your inspector was here, you had a fixed location for the file browser underneath it. It was all kind of fixed. And it doesn't need to be anymore. The nice thing is now, on top of all of these panels, right to the right-hand side, you can see you now have this icon here. And what we can do now is click it, and we've got 4 quadrants defined, so top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and each one has a left and right zone. So you can see the currently active one is, or the one with currently has stuff in it, has a little marker above it. So what we can do is we can now take this inspector and we can move it over here, say to the left of this guy, by clicking here, like so. So we now have them side by side, or we could have instead gone into that quadrant and stacked them into the same tab. So now you can lay out your user interface however you like it with a lot more flexibility. So that is nice to see. It's not quite as adjustable as just as drag and drop dock, but the fact that you can resize them after the fact too, you can make your screen pretty much how you want it to be at this point. So it's a nice change there from a UI perspective. And if you screw something up or you don't like what you've changed, just go into edit layout and just go back to the default. As you saw, you can also easily save layouts that you like. So click here, you can do a save or delete layout and create your own custom layouts if you prefer. So the moving of the layouts is definitely a nice change that they've done there. Another thing that they've done is if you look down here at, say, the file system, if I click here into the root, we now have this improved thumbnail preview, much more modern, much more approachable, sorry. So you can see, quick thumbnail of what this PNG file is. You can easily see that this contains code in this .gd file, etc. So that is definitely an improvement as well. If you want to go back, you can switch here to go into a list mode instead, and you can switch here to go back to a tree view. So that's definitely improvement in that regard. Now the same changes carry over to the new File Explorer. So say we come in here to Open Scene, you'll see the same deal. So the File Explorer has nice thumbnail previews where it makes sense, things are marked. This was one of the major areas of weakness before. The usability is a bit improved too. Some of the earlier frustrations about selecting things, it's been worked out, the kinks are gone. So that's nice to see. There's been a couple of other mild changes as well too for UI. Things like you can now adjust a number value by dragging on the number field as opposed to just clicking the plus or minus or changing it by hand. So little UI tweaks here and there, but the file system setting has definitely changed a lot. Now another thing that's changed is behind the scenes here, is the scene format that Godot is currently using is sort of a binary XML file. So right now, if you take any of these .scene files, so let me just open this back up, any of these scene files right here, so qbo.scene, for example, we go to open that in a text editor. Let me just go into this guy. So Godot demos, demo, 2D, it's isometric light that I've got opened. qbo.scene. All right, so I'll delete this guy. I should not have created. I created that in an earlier attempt at recording this. So here's our scene file. Right now, if I open that up with the text editor, sorry, brackets is a very, very slow to load editor. But here you see, error opening, not properly encoded, it's not UTF-8 encoded, so it's just not that fun to open it up. It's kind of just a problem with a binary encoded file. Now you can export it as XML, but again, it's kind of bloated, not the easiest thing in the world to read. Now what they've done is they've added a TOML, or TOML derived version. It's basically a simple text format for saving your scene files out. And this new text format is much friendlier to GitHub, human readable. So if you are, committing to source, doing binary changes, you can easily see, you can do diffs, so you can see what changes you've done. So in a lot of cases, it's a lot nicer, especially when you're working with a team, to work with a human readable format. And it's as simple as, so we just take our scene and we'll do a save our scene as. So we're dealing with map.scn here. So you see the supported formats, and we just see this new one, tscn. And that's all we're going to do. We're just going to save it as a tscn file instead, like so. And now it's a tscn file. And I'll go back here And we now have this new file in here, or we should, map.tscn, and I'll just go ahead and open that guy up. And you can see human readable. So this is new to 2.0, and it's definitely something you should start considering saving your stuff as TSCNs instead of as SCNs. It's much easier to read. It's going to probably theoretically be a little bit slower, but I can't see it being in any meaningful way impacting what you're dealing with. So nice little under the hood change, especially for those of you out there working in GitHub. Now, another thing I like about this is when I was going through the examples, I always had to download them myself, open the editor to see how things were laid out, because on GitHub, you can't open those SCN files. They're gibberish. So hopefully they port all of their examples to using TSCN instead. So then they are useful for people just on the web. You don't have to go ahead and download them. So that is another change that they've done behind the scenes, which is definitely nice to see. Now, one of my favorite changes, though, another UI tweak. This is one of those things that drove me nuts with the earlier versions, is trying to select when a lot of things overlap. There are ways of doing it. You can lock things, interlock them, select through. You can grab them here using a hierarchy, etc. But for the most part, it was a bit of a pain in the butt. Well, what we have now is you can alt-right click, and wherever you alt-right click, you get a list of all the things there. So you see we get wall map, floor map, and the light 2D. Light 2D is being overlaid right there. But say if I click on this guy right here, oops, let's get him. Come on, get the base. There, see, we've also got Cubio, and then whatever you wish to select, you just pick it there. So that is alt-right click, or you can enable the same functionality view with this guy right here. Little tweak, but it is one of those usability things that makes life so much easier. So that is definitely something I personally appreciate being added. Another major change here is going to be the code editor. But first I need to show you something else, and this is why the code editor changes came about. And this is probably, and hands down, this is the biggest feature of Godot Engine 2.0, or at least the biggest usability change, and that is you can now, so here we go, you see we've got map.scene open. I can come down here in this list and open column.scene, which is where our column is, or I can go back to that. Let's go back to that list, and instead let's open up our main player. Now, if you're not much of a Godot user, you should find the name scene a little bit misleading. A scene is more like an entity. Things are organized into scenes, and scenes are hierarchies of other nodes. So there's a lot of stuff is structured on a scene by scene basis. But don't think of scene as a setting in your world or a game level or anything. Scene is just a collection of nodes. So a scene could be a character, or as we see here, a column in the game world, or the entire game world itself, which itself is composed of a variety of different scenes. So scenes are critically important, and when you were dealing with it before in Godot, you used to have to load the scene, open the new one, close the old one, make your change, load back the original. It was a gigantic pain in the ass, especially for something that was so intrinsic to using Godot in the first place. Now what you'll notice up here, so it's instead of me having to go scene, all right, and a lot of the functionality is still here. So we've got, quick open scene, open recent, flip back, go to previous scene, etc. So there's still the functionality that we had before, so we could switch between scenes, but now we don't have to do any of that crap. It's all up here. So as you switch between scenes, they're tabbed. You can make a change in one scene, and it will automatically propagate or reload the scenes that are dependent on that guy. Huge, huge time saver. This is a wonderful new feature. So basically now scenes are all integrated. There's none of this loading and unloading, changing, and this stuff. It's all gone. But this has had a direct result on another aspect of Godot development, and this is also another improvement, is the code used to be tied to the scene you had open. So the GD scripts were attached to scenes and or the entities in the scenes. Now it's kind of a separated process. So the process of editing code has changed slightly. So here, let me just go ahead. I'm opening up this .gd file, which is the scripting format, and then this is the script attached to our main character in this example. And you'll see now that it's open, we still have our scenes across the top, but we now have a list of all of the scripts here in this scene. And the neat thing is they're also heat mapped. So this red one at the top, it's the brightest red because it is the most used. So as you do more and more and more using of, if you're coding a game on a regular basis, the most commonly used items are going to naturally propagate and be the brightest red, making it very easy to identify the most commonly used scenes. And another thing here is, as we now switch between different scene items, okay, here we go, perfect. So you notice when we switch between Cubio over to map, it automatically loaded a new scene. Well, that's because when you switch the selected scene at the top here, it will automatically load the root level script if one exists. So you can nicely still switch between scenes and it will automatically bring up what is probably going to be the most appropriate script for you. So this is a definite nice improvement. You can quickly switch between your scripts over here, and where it gets even cooler is they've kind of changed the editor a bit. So now you have your help and such integrated here quite nicely. So I'm going to bring up the class browser here and bring up, say, documentation for the File Explorer class. And here it is, embedded right in the same particular area as your scripts, but you'll notice it's now showing here in the side. So you can switch between help and scripts this quickly, and you can open up multiple. So if I open another one, pop-up menu, it's here. So I can easily go back to the file dialog, and these will also be heat mapped as you see it. Things are changing colors based off the frequency I use them. Over time, that heat map will become much more immediate or obvious. So the help you refer to the most often is going to be brightly shown, but you can have multiple help files open, multiple scripts, all shown quickly in this menu here on the side. So that's definitely a cool new way of going things. So you can not only quickly switch between scenes, but you can quickly switch between scripts as well. As you can see, you can also easily load them from the file system itself over here. But all this, hands down, is definitely an improvement over the way it was. Much quicker, much faster way of going about things. Now you'll notice though, over here, same sort of interface for switching between 2D view, 3D view, and script. So that hasn't really changed much, and you switch between your scenes here, and then once you're in a scene in script mode, switch between your scripts and your help documents over here. So it's a very clean, nice workflow, much faster than in Godot 1.x. So hands down, bravo, they did this stuff a lot better for sure. Now, as I said a second ago, scenes are very important. They are the base entities in your game. So a lot of time, your player will ought to be organized as a scene. The enemies will organize as a scene. Your levels potentially will be organized as a scene. Your game menu will be organized as a scene. So you create this hierarchy of scenes, and your scenes will contain other scenes and contain other scenes. They are the basic building blocks. Actually, they're the basic container for building blocks, I guess is a little bit more accurate way to say it, but scenes are fundamentally important to Godot. So it's really nice to see how we can switch between them. But now there's one piece of functionality that is really cool. So let's say we have this column scene up. So let me just go back into 2D mode. So this is our column in the game world. So you can see it's composed of a sprite, an occluder, and a collision shape, for example. And this could instead have been a world object, and every world object has a physics occluder and a basic shape, and then say some kind of, I don't know, some proprietary object attached to it. And then you want to start doing inheritance out. So you're not going to just create, instead of a column, say you wanted to have I don't know, a marble column or a semi-transparent column, or you wanted to build inheritance out from, and you had this common base class. Well, now what we can do with our column selected or our scene selected, just come up here to scene now and go new inherited scene. And we'll now call this one, say, Uber column. And .scn or tscn, doesn't really matter. And create. All right, why am I doing this wrong? Do I have to select the, no? Let me see, all right, am I doing this wrong? New column 2. All right, I am most definitely doing something wrong now. Okay, well anyways, that will allow you to inherit now from an existing scene. I'm not sure what I did wrong in this particular demo. This is through a calamity of errors, the third time I've done it, so I'm definitely making a mistake at this point. But what it allows you to do essentially is build hierarchies of and inheritances out of existing scenes. So what you can do is take a base one that is common to, has all the common properties that you want, and then you could create an inherited instance of it that, say, deviates in some particular way or form, but being non-destructive to the version it inherited from. So that's new functionality being added to Godot that I did a very poor job of demoing there because of mostly user error. So I apologize there. I'm not sure what I did wrong. But that is definitely functionality that is quite vital. Now, another thing is in this these new relationships or the new way that scenes work, there's a lot of power here now too. And I'm going to close this particular example out and switch to a different one. So I switch back to my project list, and instead let's load Truck Town up. This is one of the 3D examples, comes with it as well. And you see here, this root scene basically just loads up a selection menu. You pick which one you want, and this code, depending on which one you pick, will dynamically load out the associated scene. I can show you really quick. Car base, car select. So here's the car select scene. It's already loaded. All right. And car select code. So here's the code in the car select scene. So basically, if I pick the van 2, or van 3, it'll either load crane.scene, truck.scene, or car.base.scene. And we're going to go ahead and look at this truck trailer one. And I'll show you this code running very quickly first. So if you grab the truck, boom, it spawns a truck in the game world, and you can now go around and drive, etc. Kind of fun, simple game example. But it does show kind of a dynamic scene relationship going on here. So that is loading up this guy right here. And I want to show you something very fast for this. So we got truck scene, which is what, let's see, I want to show truck scene as a different example. So that's the guy we loaded, but I want to load up truck scene here. Truck scene is now loaded. Let's switch back to 2D view, or actually that's 3D view, sorry. So here we got truck scene. This is the game world we just played in. You see right here. All right. Now you look over here in the nodes that make up the truck scene. You'll notice we've got this guy right here, which is an instance of trucktown.scene. So trucktown is this guy. More or less the same thing, but what this is the this is your, so you see you got your various pieces of geography that make up your town. So we got, here's our roads, for example. I grab the road like that. Okay, so Trucktown is basically the geography that represents the world, and then the world itself is composed and brought into truck scene. So this is a referenced instance inside of town scene. Now, you used to have to do a lot of stuff to go ahead and make edits. So basically, if I wanted to change the geometry of the truck town, so if I wanted to move that road, for example, I would have to edit this scene. So basically, I would close this scene, open this scene up, and make that edit. So now it's kind of cool because I can have both of them side by side. So I could just switch over to this guy, make my, sorry about that volume, make that edit very, very quickly, and then I'd switch back and load to the other scene. Well, you don't even have to do that anymore. I'll go back to the parent scene that contains Trucktown, and you'll notice I have this drop down here now. If I click that guy right there, I can now do editable children. And grab that guy, click, and then boom. All of the various nodes, so there you can see, look at road, so right here, see? Road is available for editing right in the parent. So as you create more and more complex hierarchies, there's none of this need to switch between scenes at all anymore. You can directly come in, so watch this. So in the derived version, I can make that change directly. So that is very cool new functionality. The ability to drill into and handle and switch between and just deal with scenes in general has gotten a lot better, a lot more intuitive, and a lot more polished. So that's definitely improvement right there. Now, one other area that I'm not going to demonstrate. It's very tricky to demonstrate in a video like this, but I'm definitely going to talk about it, and I can cover this in more detail in another video in the future, which I'm certainly going to do. But there have been a couple of improvements in the debugger, some new error reporting, etc. on those lines. But the biggest new features are, first off, there's now a video card debugger, so you can get more detailed graphic information of what's going on, which is definitely nice. But the coolest new feature by far and away is the ability to debug on device. So you can now deploy your code out to your, say, Android device and actually set breakpoints, hit them, and run them in the physical device. Now this is huge because it's very hard to test things like multi-touch or motion control support on the desktop. So being able to debug onto your device is very, very, very powerful. And the other big thing that's been added, and I can't easily show it in any way whatsoever, but there is an existing video which I'm going to bring up right now, is they've added live coding support. And they've added live coding support on device too. So what you're about to see in a browser can also, on the desktop, can also happen on device. And let me bring that video quickly here. I'll link this down below as well. Okay, now this is from I'm going to guess it's Juan, basically the author of Godot itself. Hopefully I didn't brutalize your name there. This is from a while back in his development version, and this is a very low resolution video. So I'm actually going to do a higher resolution video at this at some point in the future. But what you can see is on the left-hand side, he's got the Godot editor open, and here on the right-hand side is a version of his game running. Both on the same computer, but you can also do this over Wi-Fi to a physical device such as your Android phone. And you're going to see in a second, as he makes edit there, they're being applied here. And it gets even more advanced. So he's going to grab the enemy soon and change. So he's playing the game over here and making changes to the game world as we speak. So fast forward slightly. He's going to grab enemies and drop them, boom. So you can see this is live editing. So as you make changes, they're being applied to the game immediately. So you can think this creates a very, very fast feedback loop. It's a designer's dream for the most part, and this is now officially part of the Godot Engine 2.0. So this is certainly a big new feature that's been added, and I'm really impressed. I really got to get in dig with this. So like I said, I'm going to have to go ahead and create a higher resolution video demonstrating this ability, because for some reason he only did one that's 360p. So if you find this a little fuzzy, that's why. But live editing support is now part of Godot 2, huge feature, as is on-device debugging. So if you're using Godot for mobile development, this is definitely some great new functionality for you. It makes developing and testing new levels, can I make this jump? Do I have enough movement to do this? So much faster. So live editing is one of those really cool features, and nice to see it, and it's glad that it's finally here. Now, that is the big stuff. At least that's the big stuff I'm aware of. Obviously, this isn't my release. I'm probably missing a few dozen or 100 other little releases. In fact, I know I am. If you go back to the Godot announcement, so let's go back to the Godot homepage, you'll see in the release, the 2.0 release, most of what we just saw here in video form is available there in text. There's a couple other small examples, but if you come down to the very bottom, you'll see some other new stuff that I've not highlighted in this video. There's a new color picker like so. You can now debug physics volumes and navigation meshes right in the at runtime. Very cool as well. So obviously it makes, if you're having physics issues going weird because your physics shapes aren't lining up or in there properly, or if your nav mesh isn't set up right, very easy to spot. So that is definitely a cool new feature. Live editing we just saw, but there's also a number of smaller new edits, multiple node editing, improved anchor tools, spin boxes, like I said, can now be dragged to change their value, a bunch of smaller features like the multi-select I mentioned earlier and absolutely love, inline property documentation, color changes, and then they started talking about the future. And the future of Godot is also really cool. The 2.1 release is all about polish. So we just saw 2.0. So 2.1 is what Juan is now currently working on going forward. And his priority is, again, polish. So we're going to see just usability, things that sucked in 2.0 are going to be improved in 2.1. So if you've got an issue, let them know. Little usability, tweaks, features, that kind of stuff. And on top of that, they're adding asset sharing, and this is looking as a 2.1 feature. Now think about this like the Unity asset store. So they're going to be working on having it so that you can, as they're saying, through the website, over a REST API, and in Godot editor, have asset stores. So potentially free and commercial. I don't know exactly what the plans are there, but they're going to give the ability to be able to share assets directly within Godot. And I know a lot of people talk about Unity, that the asset store is a big part of the community and a big part of the reason why they support it. So it's kind of cool to see that integration happen if it does happen. Even if it's just a way of distributing the examples and the pieces of them, that will still be a boon for people just getting started. And it might be a new marketplace for artists and musicians, etc., to sell some of their stuff. So that's coming in 2.1, or at least planned to. And then 2.2 or later down the road, his next priority is going to be 3D. He said, I think somewhat in jest, somewhat in seriousness, that he wants to give Unreal Engine renderer a run for its money. Now right now, he admits, and I'll agree, the 3D support in Godot isn't the greatest by any means. The renderer is quite old, uses a quite, I think it's tied to OpenGL ES2, and it's in need of an update, and there's a lot of stuff on the horizon, and I think he's really excited about Vulkan that was just released by the Kronos group. So I think there's a Vulkan renderer somewhere in the future, as is a bunch of 3D love, but this is down the road. So 2.0 was really about usability, the core and the guts, making scenes more, as you saw, the navigation, the coding, the experience, the transitioning, the tools, the polish. It's all a lot cleaner now, and 2.1 is going to clean that up even more and bring in this asset sharing, and then the future's bright for the people looking at 3D down the road. It's a great game engine. If you haven't checked it out in detail, I highly recommend you do. If you are currently working with it, I recommend you take a look at this about supporting them. They've done a wonderful job here and created a great tool available for all of us. So if you are looking to check it out, definitely look at supporting them. If you don't have the ability to donate or can't do anything right now, I still strongly, if you want to help Godot, go over to their Steam page, log into your Steam account, and give some feedback, give a review. Like I said, I'm going to do this myself. Great engine, needs more exposure. It's getting better every day. This is definitely a step forward on this release. So, hope you enjoyed what you saw. Let me know what you think. Comments down below. Tell me what you want to see them do in the future. Tell me if there's anything in there that you're not necessarily agreeing with. Now, I know the contentious issue is always GD script, and I wish they didn't use GD script or whatever, and that hasn't really changed much. The language itself hasn't even really changed much. There was the addition of the ability to mark things as, I think it was on ready, but I might be screwing that up, but you can now attribute variables basically to be automatically wired up when the ready handler is called, and the ability to mark a singleton that way. But that's about it for the code changes. It's not a code-focused release, and for the most part, I don't have any issues with GD script. I think it's easy to learn, I think it's easy to use, but I can understand how people don't agree. Again, it's implemented as a plugin though, so if you really want to take the reins and run with it, you can tie in .NET or C# or Lua or whatever language you want to work with. If you want to go that route, you definitely can. But personally, actually, I don't really have an issue with using the combination of C++ for customization and Lua GD script for scripting. But if you do, again, leave that in the comments down below. Let's try not to beat that dead horse too much. All right, so that was it. This is Mike at Gamefromscratch, looking at the Godot Engine 2.0. Hope you like what you saw. See y'all later.